It's Tuesday. This is Trekland HQ. So I guess that means it's Trekland Tuesdays live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek. Hey, welcome. Obviously, we need a Trill talk. That's the topic today as we come at you, as we do every Tuesday, right here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47, to bring you the big picture, clarity, and sanity in everything Star Trek. I'm looking forward to connecting a few dots today, guys. It's been an interesting week for all the reasons. But you know what? On top of everything else, Star Trek Discovery is just getting, I want to say, better and better. More thoughtful, more nuanced. I don't know. I hope you're giving it a try. I know lots of people can't and don't, and I'll be polling again on my news list at LarryNemecek.com. But guys, there is some points I want to talk about. Inspired by points from this week's episode that, forget me not, that I saw crazies online and, some well-intentioned people this week throwing some things out there. What's funny is everybody's talking about Discovery feeling like a retread of DS9 this week, which I'm okay, Lurians and Trills, and I don't know. I guess people have kind of explained it to me a little bit. But anyway, what I want to do today is do some deep diving for once. We're going to do some canon stuff today and the exciting things that I think people have missed, the questions. But before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to all of our regular community. Everybody's popping in. Everybody's saying hi. Hey, I will try to remember my post the actual quote capacity here in Restream. Hope everything is doing well for you. It's been quite a week here in the U.S., here in the rest of the world. Watching the U.S., things continue to say crazy, but we are plowing right ahead with Discovery. We're plowing ahead with New Trek, and I want to welcome everybody from the community here, from our Tuesday Livers. And if you're new to Tuesday Live, hang on. The chat is here. I will get to it after I pontificate a little bit. We'll take a midway break, and then we'll also look at the Parrot TV ratings, which stay interesting for Discovery. The Parrot TV Analytics Average Demand Expressions metric rankings is actually, and we'll look at it for the U.S. and actually a couple of other countries too. So all that today, I can't wait to get started, but I do need to say a shout out to and a thanks to all of our Patreon folk. Guys, thank you so much for being part of the Patreon. It's getting along in the month. If you want to join us and help out here on Trekland on the broadcast, on the cablecast things, very simple Patreon at patreon.com/TreklandLive. I don't have a complicated one. It's very simple. I appreciate the help, guys. Yeah. One other announcement to make before I get into it. One that's a little different, but come on, I had a lousy... Where'd you go? There you go. A lot of you know, a lot of you are ready, a lot of you are anticipating our open house tomorrow night. Well, just anticipate a little longer. I know I've already had to delay it once, but this is what happens when you deal with real live living people who are real live working. Our guest this year, our big open house, free to the public anniversary for Portal 47, our 5th anniversary, we have to delay to December 9th because his movie project just put him under, and he is just submerged. So, December 9th, same warp time, same warp channel, 7 o'clock Pacific, okay? I know it's bad for the Europeans, but that's where we go. Anyway, no open house tomorrow night. It's been postponed until December 9th, which is after the American Thanksgiving holiday, also in the mix there. Okay? I wanted to get that out. We're just changing all the advertising, all the promotion to put it back to the 9th. Okay? Third time's a charm, right? Hey, listen, let's get on with this. Yes, I've been watching all the reaction. And sadly, there's been a lot of anti-trans or whatever. There's been some of the same gobbledygook that's out there. If you've encountered anything, if anything notable has come up on your pages, in your threads, please share it with us in the chat. I'm trying to keep a good pulse here on what's going on, but we have so many good voices out there in fandom now, and professionally in the professional media that are keeping this alive, and it's really becoming an old story. It was wonderful for the representation of our non-binary and trans characters, and watching the evolution of Adira, and now Gray. Unfortunately, it's going to be a post-death presence on the show if Alexander's character continues. And they started off with interesting pronouns, which seem very mundane, very binary, a she and a he. So we're going to watch how that evolves too. They've been interviewing about that. So that's wonderful. I know that's given so many people heart. I know lots of things this last week have given a lot of people heart and hope for the future. And that was, but of course, and there were some really funny bits this week on this episode with the Thanksgiving dinner gone awry, which all ended up okay in the end. But it was good to see those moments play out. But this is not a review of the episode. Lord knows you can get enough reviews of every poor Discovery episode out there without me piling on, and I probably will do it anyway eventually in some form or fashion on somebody else's show. And we will touch on it a little bit this week on Life Support Live with Dr. Ali. What I wanted to get back to was I had forgotten how much I was intrigued by the Trills, by the Trill culture, by the Trill planet, the Trill status. And my mind immediately went back to, my note-taking. Guys, I'm so old school. I still do it the way I did it in high school, at least to start. And it sent me checking. It sent me running. I was going on memory, but it made me go back and look. And I got into digging up some points. Now, I watched a litany of well-intentioned, for the most part, well-intentioned folks doing video recaps and questioning things going on with the Trill. I mean, part of this is, I just wanted to say, some of this is not new. Where have you been for 25 years? And it's not just that people are looking at the host on Next Generation, the initial appearance of Trills with Odan and the lost symbiont that needed, this. Kudos to the three writers, to the returners there that did the script and the oversight, because they had the line, there's been no successful human hosting of a symbiont, which was true. You had Riker, right, for 5 seconds there in that episode, which was the point of it. And then they sent a Trill to host the body. They found a way to do it without killing Riker in the process. Yay. Hadn't been the 93 hours or whatever it was that they postulated, whatever they had to fix for DS9. The biggest thing coming out of this was suddenly people realized there's been a whole crop of fandom find out that, wait a minute, the first time the Trills were on Star Trek, they didn't look like they do now. Which is like, well, get in line. Lots of species have been, Klingons say, hold my beer. But that got retconned later. And there's never been a full retconning of, hello, and Romulans say, I'll take some ale too. But we've kind of all headcanon retconned that these are just different subspecies of Trill hosts and that the symbionts have diversity too. So, it's okay. It's okay. The backstory is that they applied the Odan bumps to lovely Terry Farrell, who was the last person cast of the DS9 cast. And in the screen tests, and the screen tests are out now. They're out with the DVDs and the bonus features, and the clips are everywhere, and you can see. They even tried her with half dots when they went to the spots. But they didn't. They went with spots all the way down and toned the back where it was a narrow band. But they didn't keep her with even the light forehead touches that Odan had. Okay, fine. We've got two species. Let's move on. Odan couldn't beam. The Daxes could. Okay, fine. That was something particular. I mean, people have kind of been retconning this. That was something particular to that particular joining combination. That was something particular to that species of Trill host, which may have been a minority. Okay, fine. The thing that got me, though, and some people even talk about the story being derivative. Oh, look, it's another emergency Trill hosting. Well, if the Trills are as out into the galaxy as they are, it's like Vulcans going through Ponfar and having to get home again. I mean, we've had 50 years of rapid and foaming fanzine fiction about what to do when a Vulcan has to go through Ponfar and isn't at home. There are workarounds, including the Delta Quadrant. But this one about Trills having to come home to be joined into a new host and humans. Well, the bottom line here is, yes, somehow Adira did it. That had not been a given. But the bottom line to everything that Discovery is operating here, and everything that I say today has the caveat, is it's been 1,000 years, folks. It's been practically 1,000 years, 800 to 1,000 years since a lot of the elements we covered in the original, from Archer's time through Next Gen time, the 22nd, 23rd, 24th centuries. It's been a millennia, and you've had a cataclysm around for 120 years. So there's wiggle room. There is time to play with some of this. People adapt, and you're getting bits of that. It's more cultural items, and you get hints of that on Trill. But I was thrilled to see they went for that same, they weren't shooting in the Huntington Gardens the way they did before, but I have to find it. I'm sure the park, people in Toronto know what park that is. Somebody may even put it in the chat here. But it's another Trill, but it had that lush garden look that the Huntington Gardens location had for the one time we got out on the surface of Trill, or the landscapes, the way the landscapes were painted. Okay. People putting out ripoffs that tall Gray into Gray especially, and then we saw Adira doing it, playing cello when that was an older. I mean, Duran the keyboard. Hello, Dax and her keyboard. I mean, the point is that story-wise, visualizing a story, playing a musical instrument is one of the easiest things to. What do you want to do? Having an affinity for jigsaw puzzles? I mean, it's one of the not only more visual aspects we could see to get it of the continuity of hosting memories and hosting abilities, but it's also very pleasant. It's very textual. It's very aesthetic, and you can play with it, and it can set a mood. Hard to set a mood with the jigsaw puzzle. I guess you can. Don't ask me why I said jigsaw puzzle. It's a live show. But you can do that. A painting takes longer to, you know, there are other aspects you can do at gardening, whatever. Bad gardeners, if you're familiar with the Trill, with the Dax host line. That wasn't, you know, we're saying it's a ripoff of Picard from his Katanan character from Inner Light. It's like, come on, guys, really? Really, music is a powerful thing, and it still survives and thrives 300 years in the future, much less 1,000 years in the future. So some of these straw dogs set up to be, you know, throwdowns. I don't know. The point about having a Trill ceremony, which I don't think got a fancy name here. People immediately go back and think of the Jantara. That was from Facets. That was Jadzia doing the ceremony where she requires other vessels to temporarily host the essence of a prior host, right? This was really more like, a lot of people may forget it, this is really more like what Esri did with her Rite of Emergence, where she actually conjured up Duran, the serial murderer, the disturbed murderer from her past, to put it to use to look to tracking down her own helping track down the serial killer on DS9. That was a case where it was all, she didn't need a body, a cooperating accomplice to be a host body. It was all just an image of her mind, which is actually kind of, you know, dramatically interesting in another way. That seems to be what is going to be the case with Adira and Gray, even as she's not even sure of the ability. But also in the moment when she's in the caves of Makala, the pool, the symbiont pools, and she's confronting her memory threads, which is a wonderful visualization of that whole thing, confronting 5 past hosts. Now, this sets me up, and hang with me. And guys, if you're on Twitch, I started if you're on Trill. If you're on Twitch, we will get to you, okay? After I haven't even scoped the chat board here yet, but I'm glad to see so many folks here. Okay, I just want to get through this. The thing that always killed me about the Trills, we didn't really have a Trill story after the 3rd season, after Equilibrium. And I'm sorry, Will, it's Equilibrium, not Equilibrium. Does anyone say Equilibrium? Well, I guess Will does, but okay. That threw me. That was interesting. The other thing is By the way, I'm surprised that no one is screaming that how can they name the symbiote Tall when we all know that Tall was a Romulan subcommander from the 23rd century. And Subcommander Tall. Yeah, what is that? It was also nice to see the cello has a place in Star Trek with somebody besides O'Brien, which was always a funny thing. It looks much more at home in Gray/Adira's hands. Anyway, here's the big thing. What we know about symbionts. This is revisiting and even adding to our look. What we finally got, Jadzia would always talk about her slug. So we've gone from slugs to squids. Her slug being 300 years old. 300 years old. Well, people forget this, but in the examination of the bioscreens of the Dax hosts, there's a graphic. There's a good old Akudagram biographic, just like we have for the Next Gen crew, et cetera, showing the hosts of Dax, and actually the symbiont Dax being born. Let me get this, in 2018, and not being joined to Lita, the first host, until 2168. So right there's kind of an implied implication that the symbionts are long-lived. Well, we knew 300 years. Hold that thought for a second. They're long-lived, but they apparently take a long time to mature in human terms into the ability to host. Now, maybe it was a late bloomer. Maybe Dax was a late bloomer, but that works out to 150 years from birth to whatever a birth looks like, however gendered it is. If the symbionts are asexual and aren't male female, what they're only birthed by the pools of symbionts that are in between hosts. We haven't really got into that yet either. Supposedly there are several hundred, 300 or 500, depending where you look, symbionts, 1 in 1,000 that are able to be hosted by the general population of Trill humanoid hosts, which is itself a lie, but let's go for that for a second. Supposedly 1 in 1,000 Trills can host them, and there's just a few hundred a year available. That's between ones that slip out of a dead that are passing from one host to another, or that are newly, not so much born, apparently, but they have matured to maturing rate. So for a population that's tiny, they're staying, I need to get Muhammad Noor in here on this, they're staying viable to perpetuate their own species as well as be, powerful symbiote hosts. One thing I always wondered about was, what is the lifespan? Jadzia would say 300, and it was about 300, actually 351. If Dax was born in 2018, when we first meet Jadzia, it's 2169. That would be 300, right? Yeah, 351 years old Dax is, and has a life to go. Apparently so, because the other thing that was shocking was, and here's the thing, Dax had 7 hosts, 8 hosts in 350 years. Okay, let's say 360, counting the additional years that we know about. If Dax had 8 hosts in 360 years, that's, what is that? That's, let's say 8 hosts in 360. That's barely 40-something years a host. Now, a couple of those were accidentally cut longer. To me, it begs the question, how long does a Trill humanoid, what's the lifespan of a Trill humanoid? Because look at this. What Forget-Me-Not gave us was that wonderful tableau of 5 prior tall hosts. Was that all of them? They implied that it was. Did you see the diversity of the hosts? We have one, and these are Trills, they're not humans. But we had one that was kind of evocative of a South Asian, 2 females, 2 males, and another male. And then we've had the other male that was new. Gray had just been hosting for about a year. So yes, he's actually a 6th host, but he was, look at the other 5. And then the fun thing, they all had different clothing. 2 were apparently civilian. The other woman who seemed Caucasianish, and I'm sorry for resorting to racial names. Senatal himself had an Indian-ish look to him, a South Asian look to him. When we have a dark-skinned, I'd say African American, but that's kind of a ridiculous term to use in this context. We had a darker-skinned Trill, a male, and then we had another male on the end who was in a blue civilian outfit, who had a vaguely Asian, some kind of persuasion. And of course, the nerd heads all look at the uniforms, right? So we've got Senna in what is apparently his uniform from Starfleet, since his message, again, that they're chasing was from 2387. That's only 10 years. That's only about, 10 years back. He died just in the last year, and that set up Gray's joining, right? The passing to Gray in a planned operation, and then the emergency transplant, the joining to Adira, a human, which is apparently possible now in some ways. But then again, it's been 800 years. So everybody gets off on that detail. What's amazing here is, A, you're seeing an admiral's outfit on Tall from at least 10 years ago of the Federation when we find them. Will it match what we've seen this year? Or will they have, if that is Starfleet. He had 6 rank pips on his epaulets. Was he the CNC? Was he the commander-in-chief of whatever Starfleet is now, this shrunken Starfleet? Is that why he was the voice on the message? Is that what the CNC's outfit uniform looks like? More intriguingly, we've got another one, the gray one, the first woman, which is gray. Is that a Starfleet uniform of some time in the past, 800 years? Was that some other service uniform? Of course, the most intriguing is what the black, the darker skinned host was wearing. Looked like something right out of the 2390s, out of the Picard series time, sometime around the synth attack on Mars and then going forward. Now, if that's true, if we're not seeing some resemblant uniform, that would be, hey guys, I told you this was going to be a canon deep dive this week. So, no squishy soft topics this week. We're hardcore. If that truly was a Picard-ish era that we know at least was what was going on in 2388, that makes a very nice 2388, 3188. That's exactly 800 years. What that tells, if that's true, and that wasn't some later echo of that uniform style later, but if that's true, and it seems like these producers, that would be the intention, then that means that whatever was going on beforehand, the Tall symbiont is at least 800 years old. And boy, going strong. And if that was the first, if that wasn't the first joining, then it's even older than that. Then it sets up the same question. Are these the only 5 hosts? 6 counting Gray. Are these the only 5 prior hosts? Gray has the last year. I'm not leaving him out. And yes, they were using male pronouns with Gray in this to begin with. What does that say if these are indeed the only 5 prior hosts of Tall? And why would they not? It doesn't cost much to throw another couple of extras up there. I don't think that would have been a problem. You could have even CGI'd some in the shadows and had them mock the spiritual embrace gesture. But if that's really the only 5 symbiote hosts, then symbionts can live 800 plus years. Get us out of the 300-year range we at least had in our heads with Dax. I mean, Dax was just a baby with all that experience. There are symbiote hosts that live a long time if our dating with the uniform is correct. And then that begs the question, if there's only been 5 hosts in 800 years, how long do Trill humanoids live anyway? I mean, a lot longer than the 40-ish years we saw in the Dax history. That's what started to blow my mind. Maybe Trills became somehow more long-lived their lifespan enlarged as the hundreds of years went by after the time we have from next generation DS9 onward. Maybe something happened on Trill. The biggest question for me is what was left hanging way back in Equilibrium DS9. Cisco and Dax herself, Jadzia herself, come away with the planet knowing they had this huge looming scandal. They had a cover-up. They had a well-intentioned cover-up that the Symbiosis Commission was hiding the fact that actually half the population could host a symbiote. Half the population could host a symbiote. Well, we have to say this so they're not storming the gates and aren't auctioning off the symbionts, like it's some kind of Hollywood collectible show or something, which I understand, but that's still secrets kept are looming time bombs. I was just amazed. We pitched stories to go back to that issue. And Cisco and Dax it's like being the last two people alive that know who really shot JFK. I want to know what happened. Now, yes, 800 years have gone by. A lot of bets are off. The burn has happened. The population's been decimated, which brings me to the last big question that I didn't even realize was a debate point until I got back into researching. I always assumed Trill was a Federation member. And yes, I know lots of planets are not Federation members that have natives in Starfleet. Very famously, Worf. Very famously, Ferenginar with Nog. Nog was like a breakthrough. We've seen breakthrough candidates, and they get celebrated that way. But we've had Jadzia, we've had Ezri, we've had several other examples of Trills, and we had Param on the Enterprise E. I go down the list. The character that Max was supposed to be seen as being a male Trill in the library during Insurrection. I mean, we've seen lots of Trills in Starfleet. And Curzon was a Federation ambassador. And yeah, you could have Federation ambassadors from neutral planets. But I've seen this point about it's never been canonically said on camera that Trills are a member of the Federation. I guess that's true. It's just that they seem to be way past. And you could say there's lots of Bajorans in Starfleet before. Some, 2, 3, 4. There seem to be dozens, if not hundreds, of Trill in Starfleet, though. We could go on and on from there, too. We've got Barnes on the pilot of Lower Decks, for God's sake, and that's only in Picard time. My point here is I always assumed, and I think Jeff did too, as we did the star charts, we always assumed Trill was a Trill. In fact, there's, and I've been trying to check the guys and gals to see what the intentions were, but even the fact that Trillius Prime was an antiquate, was the Vulcanian version of Trill back in Archer's time before it was just shortened to Trill. And yeah, the planet was called Trill. We're going to Trill. That's what they'd say. Oh, yeah, we finally got a name. We don't say the Trill homeworld. And it's a lot less clunky than Kronos. It's obvious, but it's not clunky. But then I see where Mike and Denise took pains to say it was never on film, which is true. So there we are. I would love to have verification. This may be a one-and-done subject matter. They may be off and running and got their Trill aboard with a little backstory. And we don't go back to Trills unless it's a story point that unravels later on. Seems like we're kind of done with Trill as a thing, which would be sad. But then again, it's opened up for others to explore. I don't know. What do you think? I have a poll. I was hoping to hear back after I kind of stumble into this. Whether Trill is a member of a formal member of the Federation or not. Now, it's obviously not when it's visited by Michael and Adira. It's a post-burn thing. Somewhere along the way, was it, and then it wasn't? If only there was another famous planet associated with the Federation that no longer is a member either. Oh, yeah, Sol 3. So it could have been a member and out. Now, the fact that the burn decimated, save your air quotes, Larry, decimated the Trill hosting population is interesting. That, to me, says that whether or not, Trill itself is fine. We're talking about dilithium inertia and allowing the plasma of a matter-antimatter reaction to build up and not go anywhere and overwhelm the magnetic shielding. That's my take. If you just say the lithium goes inert, that just means that the filter at the end of the engine called up and threw all the vapors back in the engine till you had a buildup and explosion. That's all that can mean. But if the Trill population of humanoid potential hosts and hosting humanoids was decimated literally means reduced to 1/10 the size. So if 90% of the Trill humanoid population was killed by the lithium going inert and antimatter over explosions, then they had to have been out in space. That's not the kind of thing that happens on the planet. The planet's fine. That's the kind of thing you have when so much of your population is spaceborne and using warp-capable engines. I don't know. Has anybody else got through any of this? I've seen a lot of very shallow. I mean, people are celebrating the characters as they should, and people are pointing out these little surface. Oh, bump spots. Ooh, beaming. Ooh, not. But here's the deep stuff. And to me, if 90% of the Trill population was out being deep space born, that's another argument that says they were probably in Starfleet, heavily populated on other ships. But whether they were Federation Starfleet or not, the Trills were very much involved in the galaxy. They're very much involved in the space around them for that to have happened to that degree. But again, it's another implication. It's a lot of cross hatching. Maybe there was some headcanon. We're going to unravel this. But I want to see. I'd always thought that Trill was a member. I don't know. I thought it was well beyond that. Oh, look, we've got pioneering members who are one-offs. I always thought that, which is why I always thought it was dicey. Cisco and Dax going back to the Trill Commission. He's trying to save Dax, but in the process, they exposed this whole cover-up about hostability by your average Joe and Jane Trill. I always thought that was a scandal waiting to explode, but there was an awkwardness. Not because Trill was a neutral planet, but because they were a Federation member and doing this to their own people. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Guys, that's where my head, I'm not a typical fan, but that's where my head started exploding. And I loved the ceremonial scene. I love the whole depiction of the Trill pools and the face your pain moments of the show is just as a visualization of how to confront that. But also when we did get to the Trillization there at the end and the embracing and the Trill language and all of that. I don't know. What did you guys think? Well, I tell you what, I'm going to leave it there. Probably Discovery is going to leave it there too. They will probably be zipping off to the next chapter in their story, which is actually what DS9 with standalone stories did too. They kind of just left it there and zipped off to the next thing. And before you know it, we got a Dominion War arc that's awesome and squeezing out all these little personal stories for everybody else of all the alien worlds that we never got to, including Teller Prime. So let me just say, we're going to take a break here in a moment, but if you're leaving us here on YouTube, just want to say again, thanks for being here. Again, our open house is postponed to December 9th. We're still going to have David. I hope so. That's our plan now. We'll see. Otherwise, guys, hey, don't forget the Trek Files is there. We've got 5 seasons. We're still on hiatus for another couple of weeks, but I hope you can go over to Facebook and check out 5 seasons and all the awesome docs if you haven't yet, or go rewatch one. Podcast.roddenberry.com. Every Saturday as well, Dr. Ali and Dr. Trek, one of us is a real doctor. We are boldly going through uncertain times on Life Support Live on all these same channels where you're watching me right now. We'll be there at 10 a.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, etc., etc. Come join the community. We have an awesome group. We have a Facebook page, too, on that. And, yes, one more shout-out for all of our Patreons, Blaze K, Lawrence Todd, Blake Arledge, our TTLers, and our Livewire Club, Rusty Harrell, Jared Cooper, Mr. Vestek, Halbert Gunn Johnson, Jalen Bullock, Gary Williams, Robert McLean, and Eli Irwin. Thank you guys very much. If you want to help out, if you want to be part of it, patreon.com/Trekland Live, just a $5 and $10 a month. They take care of it. You can support creatives that way. There's lots there. You might look around. You might see somebody you want to support more than me. That's cool. But I do appreciate it all here. If you really want to jump in, just come in with us at Portal 47. Sign up, go over to LarryNemecek.com, jump in right now and get your ticket for our open house now on December 9th. That's all free. You can see how we have a guest night with an awesome guest, biggest guest of the year. I say for open house when we open the doors for everybody for free. Otherwise, guys, where you're watching me on YouTube, that's my Twitter, Larry Nemecek. And if you're on Facebook with us, Larry Nemecek's Trekland, that's my Instagram. Appreciate if you come over and subscribe and follow. And yeah, portal47.net. You can check that out too. And guys, that's it. What a week this has been. What a show this was. I can't wait to dive into the chat here after the break, after we look at the parrot rankings. Till then, though, if you're leaving us here, as always, stay well. Stay woke. Check the sources. That's what I mean. And most of all, Trek well.